games or cover it in any way. And we're now joined by Fox Sports' Brock Huard. He joins us on 365 Sports, prepping for Baylor at Oklahoma State. Brock, what will it be like if you could get anything close to what it was like in Arlington for the Big 12 championship game?
Yeah, sign me up. That would I take that one down to the final. I don't know what, inch and a half of turf in that game. And we were in Norman over the weekend, and that was a whale of a ball game. And people always, like to have a little fun with us announcers in the social media realm and think we have a rooting interest for one team or another. But all we really root for is compelling theater. And when these two got together last year, that was certainly compelling, as has really K-State and Oklahoma just about every time out the last 4 years. So I don't think it'll be anything different. I think this will be a very hard-fought game Saturday down there in Waco, and I think the guys in the desert tend to agree with the spread that's pretty darn tight.
Brock, is there a team in the Big 12 that is bad, legitimately bad, or is this a league that's going to beat up on each other a lot?
Yeah, we chatted with Derek Mason today, and I think he echoed the sentiment of a lot of people. There's just really not going to be an easy out. Now, we'll see how the year plays out. There's a lot of very physical teams. I think your Bears are about as physical as it gets in this conference, but Iowa State plays physical football. K-State and Oklahoma play physical football. Obviously, Oklahoma State is incredibly physical as well. And with as many of those teams built that way over the course of the season, you and I both know what's going to happen. That what it looks like, week 1 in the Big 12 or week 2 is not in any way what it's going to look like by the end of the year, because you're going to have losses. You're going to have key contributors and key players that get knocked out for significant time just because of the nature of the physical presence in this league. And as I'm saying that, I'm kind of chuckling because it was just 5 or 6 years ago, no one would have ever said that about the Big 12. But, yeah, there's new coaches, there's new blood, there's new physical programs. So I think as we sit here today, obviously with Kansas's emergence and K-State's big win and Sonny Dykes doing nice things there in Fort Worth, and even Texas Tech obviously getting it done late there against Texas. Yeah, not really an easy out. West Virginia obviously had some struggles out of conference. But I think Neil Brown's an excellent coach, and they still have a QB that can sling it everywhere, and they'll be a problem for some people. So there's really not a gimme on the schedule as we sit here and look at it right now.
Brock, last year Blake Chapin got kind of thrown into the fire on the road against Kansas State, a matter of fact. Plays the second half, then plays the season finale against Texas Tech, and then plays in the Big 12 championship game and plays really well early on before getting his shoulder dinged up and then missing the bowl game. Obviously, those 3 games helped, and now that the games he's played so far this season, but how much before you feel like you've really kind of found yourself as a quarterback? Do you think he's approaching that already, or do you think there's a little bit more experience required?
Well, I think that depends on the people around you. And as Coach Aranda said the other day, coming out of the Iowa State game, I read into his quote of, he was trusting himself and trusting the team. And that's really the word, I think the word I continually come back to. It's not talent. I mean, he's got a beautiful release and the flick of a wrist. He's like, obviously a shortstop in baseball, and you see that arm talent manifest itself on the field. But it comes down to trust. And you had 2 senior running backs last year. You had 2 dynamic senior receivers. I'm looking at my board, comparing this year to last year. I had a Baylor a season ago against Iowa State, and it's like, who are these guys? Where did they go? Some of these receivers weren't even on the depth chart last year, and obviously asked to play significant roles. The true freshman running back was playing high school football last year. So the benefit is he has a bruising group up front. That does enable, I think, a quarterback to hopefully gain trust even quicker. But as far as throwing it on the perimeter, and you saw that in Provo, he was just hesitant. He flinched. When I watched that tape, I had BYU Oregon a few weeks ago. So in my prep for that game, I watched the Baylor game, and I was like, man, that is not the Blake Chapin I saw a season ago. That's not the one I saw in the Big 12 title game. And I think it was representative of just not trusting that perimeter, those perimeter people, and throwing with anticipation, and was just kind of clutching everything. And that was not the case in Ames. And I think for Coach Aranda, for Coach Grimes in particular, calling the plays, if Ames is a precursor of things to come, that's a good sign, because that O-line is good. The people on the perimeter will grow. Your tight end is elite, and this little freshman running back's got quite a burst to him as well.
Brock, did you see Jeff Grimes do anything differently in Ames to give Blake more of the ability to do what he did than he did in Provo?
Well, as the course of that game went on in Provo, you did see Coach Grimes button it up. You did see him say, uh-oh. You know, he likes to be down on the field, and Jeff is one of my favorite guys to talk to and has been the last couple years. I had him at BYU, as I mentioned last year, and even when he was no line coach, I'd kind of bug him and walk in his office at times. So on the road in Ames and what we saw on a difficult night in Provo.
Brock, I do want to ask you a question while we have you here about you as a broadcaster. You've been doing this for a while. I think you might have had your signature call in the Nebraska-Northwestern game this year, because it's hard to hit a note that everyone who's watching a game all over the world felt when you said, I don't know about that, on that onside kick. You were all of us at the same moment having that same thought.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. I think when you do radio, and I do what you guys do in the mornings, I do it now back to Seattle, where I did it for 12 years. There's something about guys that do radio on a daily basis that, I don't know, maybe our filter gets weakened, or we have a little sense of our audience at times or what they're feeling, but yeah, that was one of those moments I turned to my new play-by-play guy, who's just been awesome. I don't know if you all have ever chatted with Jason Benetti. What a great guy. Mm-hmm. Creates such comfort and confidence. And we chat, obviously, off the air during the timeouts. And, yeah, that was one that I just looked at him, and I didn't even think of the audience. I think that comment was geared toward him, like, I don't know about that, Jason. That certainly did not work, and unfortunately, a harbinger of things to come for Scott and staff.
Well, hey, things are going well for the Huskies, so I'm sure that's a fun conversation to have with, thanks to Michael Penix up there right now. But I want to ask you about another quarterback, since I know you're short on time. But on the other side of the Bears this weekend will be Spencer Sanders, who we've seen for many years now, and we've seen the good, the great, the bad, the worst, what have you. He's off to a really nice start this season. Brock, is there anything different to his game? Is it just playing with confidence? What do you notice about him through this first month?
He still puts the ball in harm's way. I mean, there were a couple Arizona State drops. He will still do that when people are around him. And you guys know this better than I do. I mean, 10 of his 32 interceptions in his career are against your Baylor Bears. And I had our research staff and just got the answer here about half an hour ago, fresh off the press. So I don't know if you already know this or not, but I asked our guys in research, when was the last QB to throw 10-plus interceptions versus one opponent? And you got to go back to the great Alex Brink at Washington State in the early 2000s. From a Power 5 standpoint against Oregon State, he threw 12. Oh, wow. So if we get a few more, if Spencer throws a few more to the Baylor Bears this way Saturday, then he may push Alex Brink. But he's a twitchy guy. He loves to run. In those matchups against Baylor over the course of his career, he runs it on average 12 times a game. Against ranked opponents, he will run it up to 14 times a game on average. So that to me is the X factor. In the passing game, they throw a bunch of outs, a bunch of in cuts. They'll take their shots. He's got kind of a funky release, but he will pull the trigger. But the difference, as it was, frankly, for Adrian Martinez going to Oklahoma and winning, when you go on the road, especially, your X factor can be your legs. So for Baylor Bears fans, third downs, red zone, critical moments in the game, you better contain him because he looks to use his wheels, and they're awfully, awfully dangerous.
Brock, your thoughts about Baylor? I know they have not allowed over 100 yards in a game. Brigham Young, Jaron Hall hurt them with his legs, but mainly his passing. He was phenomenal with Roberts. Your thoughts about how they have been able to shut people down, no matter who they've played, with that big, thick, deep defensive line?
Yep. Well, that's it right there, man. When you can win the most basic math equation on the field, when you're 4, and sometimes with Siaki, it's just your 3 to beat 5, it gives you so many more numbers to play with. It's kind of the inverse of what I was just talking about with a quarterback that can run. You get that extra +1 in the run game because he becomes a runner and not just handing the ball off. They do that defensively with their, as you said, huge, long, athletic, thick guys up front that just make you earn every yard and then do enough in the passing game to squeeze and constrict and feel that QB feels their presence in that pocket. And then you've got 7 or 8 on the back end that cause a lot of problems. That when there's 4 receivers versus 7, no QB likes those odds. So that will certainly be critical. Their ability to contain Spencer, to hit Spencer. I love how fast Dylan Doyle and Matt Jones are playing at the second level of that defense as well. I think they're playing fast as any second level defenders I've watched on tape at this point in the season. And yeah, boys, it's going to be a loud one. It's going to be a physical one, and it's going to be one whose ever veteran defensive line controls and constricts this pocket most frequently, more than likely wins it Saturday.
Brock, last question for you. Dave Aranda, there are fits of great head coaches elsewhere, some of them Hall of Famers, some of them that won national titles. Your sense for the fit of Dave Aranda and what we've seen at Baylor and what Baylor also means to him?
Yeah, I think it's similar to your basketball coach. Now, ultimately, he lifted the trophy, right, and won the whole doggone thing. But I think you see a similar feel there, frankly, for a lot of those coaches in the sports there. It's just obviously men's and women's basketball and football tend to generate the exposure and obviously the revenues too. But, yeah, it is a fit. And you saw that in the hiring process last year where, I mean, if you're a Baylor Bear fan, you're thrilled because there was just about any and every major opportunity and almost any and everyone came knocking at his door. And I think he felt a peace and contentment with life there, with raising his family there, with the people that surround him in leadership and on his staff there. And those were awfully attractive things to keep him there in Waco and obviously sign a lucrative extension. And then ultimately you recruit the kind of guys, I'm sorry, long answer, but you recruit the kind of kids that fit your eye. And you've got enough talent in Texas and in that area and within a 4 or 5 hour drive of the quality of kid he's looking for. And that, too, I think is very attractive to Dave.
No, we appreciate the long answer. I'm sorry. I went to say thank you. Appreciate your time. I know you got a crazy cram schedule. Appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you Saturday and also hearing the call and watching the call, too.
That sounds great, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Brock Huard, Fox Sports. He and Jason Benetti will have the game on Saturday, 2:30, Baylor and Oklahoma State at McLean Stadium.
We need to get him on